clients are, so I'm paraphrasing, clients don't really care uh, about just how amazingly talented or creative you are or how brilliant your ideas are, as much as they care about the fact that you actually care about what you're doing for them. And until you have that recognition, until they believe you actually care, that your talent doesn't mean anything to them until they actually believe you care.
Absolutely.
So when you're set up to have difficult conversations, or when you're set up to discuss, what you think might be a better solution, if you come at it from that place where there's no way they could ever think that this is in your best interest and not theirs, if they think that you only are passionate about it because you think it's in their best interest, then you have a much better chance of breaking through. But you can't make them wrong, because they'll fight you or you'll lose influence. You can't make them wrong. You have to somehow, try as best as you can. And if it doesn't happen, then if you're not walking away but you're finishing up, then you just know, well, they'll get what they get, but you gave it your shot. And because we're project based, we don't have to live with that for the rest of our lives usually. But I've found that the things that the stuff that seems undeniable, if even they haven't found a good argument against it, those are the things that get through the easiest. Is it just feels undeniable. You can go try and do research about it, but the research is just going to confirm what we already know. So let's just move on and do something great, But there are things that we've done that have surprised me, that the success of them has surprised me, that the kind of overwhelming response was more positive than negative, because my hunch was that it could easily have gone the other way. And I think that what I've learned is that there's a certain amount of humanity. If there's humanity involved and can be seen or can be noticed by people, then they feel like there's people behind it. So, for instance, if something feels so perfect and so buttoned up and so almost mechanical in its design, then it's not as easy to love necessarily as something that has a little quirk to it, and there's some people behind it. And then you think, some boardroom couldn't have made this decision. Some people had to make this decision. This probably wasn't a committee, but probably some very fascinating, interesting people I'd like to know are making this product or doing this service, or and I think people sort of sniff that out. I think they can see it.
Yeah, I think people can sniff out when things are real, when they're human, and when they resonate on that level, as opposed to committee work that just is done for approval or safety.
Yeah, and you'll see a lot of that stuff, and it's not ineffective. It's just not optimized, right? It still works. It's just not optimized, and unfortunately, we just kind of fall into it and take it, and it's not bad enough to complain to anybody, but it's not inspirational or aspirational.
You've touched on two big qualities I consider: listening and caring. What do you believe are some of the skills or mindsets that creative people need to become leaders?
Yeah, well, I think you could just repeat what you just said: listening and caring. That's probably That's probably it. Um, you know, I think really, really good leaders have uh, their influence comes because they're true. They have a groundedness to them that it doesn't feel like everything's purely their one singular agenda. That they're wrong sometimes and willing to accept that, and also that their enthusiasm or their passion or their work ethic is something that you might admire. And so even if they're wrong, you're willing to follow them because you believe in their spirit. But that influence takes, I think it takes a certain amount of character that you're willing to have or willing to share, and not necessarily be a closed book about who you are.
When you distill what you do down to its essence, what do you believe is the core value that you offer the world?
That's a much more difficult thing to respond to in a profession where you're really like a defense attorney sometimes, where maybe you don't truly believe your client's innocent, but it is your job to defend them so that you're actually upholding the system. Because if you're not the greatest challenge to the system doesn't work at all. And so there's a philosophy that you have to kind of maintain. So sometimes, we're working on products or services that may not be absolutely fantastic in terms of, are they the very best in their business, or are they the very best thinkers in their industry? And I will say that for the most part, we do get to work for companies and for individuals and for services that are truly great. And so we don't have to lie or feel like we're compromised in any way on it. But it's still business. It's still like, there's still probably things that aren't perfect about all of this, which is what we're not artists. We're not solving our own problems. We're solving other people's problems. And so and if I like take it down to some really, really sort of crude economics, and I will do this sometimes when I'm talking to students, I'll say that my job is to make rich people richer. And it's like they have enough money to hire us, so that's good. But they're not going to hire us without a multiplier on the end of it. And so that's okay too. There's not a lot of altruism to it. It really is kind of moving products and hoping people are keeping the capitalistic vibe alive. So if you really got down to the philosophy of it all, it's not as charming or beautiful or whatever as as I as I probably dreamed something would be. But
Of course.
unless you're doing some pro bono stuff or whatever, and we do, where there are causes and social causes and cultural causes that really are important and offer so much more value than just consumerism does. But um, so I don't know. I really don't know how to answer that one. It's a little too fuzzy for me.
Well, a little more specific, maybe. What, in the end, do you want to be remembered for?
I just don't think people would really need to care that much. I am So I'm not worried about a legacy, I guess. I'm not worried about those kinds of things. I can't live my life or work my career worried about those kinds of things. I do appreciate recognition from people who I admire. I like like I've had my own design heroes throughout my life, and and uh, uh, one of them in particular is a guy named Martin Peterson, who's a publisher of Graphis, and he has been highly supportive, and he has been highly complimentary and really appreciative and genuinely kind of expressed a sort of fandom for some of the work that I've been able to do in my career. And as a very young designer, looking at his work at the time and how it inspired, and how I just thought how amazing he was at the time, for him to turn that around and say something like that to me, or to express that to me, um, there's no award, there's no legacy, there's nothing more I'd need, right? That's like, there's one of my heroes, one of my design gods that thinks I'm great, and wow, that's it, done. Now how do I keep working? Because
Yeah. But that's not a small thing.
I mean, I guess not. So if I would think that if anybody could have that happen in their life, that would be, I can tell you, it's awesome. There doesn't need to be a building or a street or or a lifetime achievement or anything. Um, if if you get to that place, where your heroes think they're equal or whatever, worthy.
That's not a small thing. Well, speaking of heroes, along those lines, are there some people who are doing work right now that you have your eye on, that inspire you or excite you about what they're doing?
Yeah. When I mentioned Steve Smith, the tea maker, one of the four Steves of Tazo, um, after retiring after selling the brand to Starbucks and then working there for some time and then retiring for a year and a half, something like that, he decided to start up a new tea company again, because he's a serial entrepreneur, and got to work with him again on that. And so there's another tea company called Stephen Smith Tea Maker. He just passed from a unsuccessful fight against liver cancer, and that company still thrives, is
Oh,
still doing great stuff. And one of the things that is sort of those sort of secret behind the scenes things is some of the work that he did when he was at Tazo, and has continued to do, and that company still continues to do beyond him, is work back in the uh, areas of origin. So, for instance, he set up um, an organization with the help of Mercy Corps called Chai, and that was an organization that helped support and helped the communities in India, not necessarily just the tea region, but in the regions around the tea producing regions as well, get clean water or just improve their lives in any way possible. And Mercy Corps would identify, some of the opportunities, and then they would help financially support making that stuff happen. And so the tens of thousands of people whose lives have been dramatically improved is, you know, phenomenal. And so they continue to do the same kind of work quietly behind the scenes.